Hi, this is Jermaine. How many of you have gone through the process of deconstruction? Not only religious, but social and cultural as well. Well, you're not alone. I've been going through the same process for quite some time, and this is the first part of my journey. I just want to share this with you, and I hope to inspire you. So let's start with the definition of the word deconstruction. According to Cambridge Dictionary, deconstruction is the fact of breaking something down into its separate part in order to understand its meaning, especially when it's different from how it has been previously understood. And according to Merriam-Webster, deconstruction doesn't actually mean demolition. Instead, it means breaking down or analyzing something to discover its true significance. So basically, when we understand deconstruction, most of the time we think that it's basically losing what we have believed before and embracing something else, or just losing and do not believe in anything. But no, deconstruction is actually questioning, going into the things that we have believed before, breaking down, questioning, to understand its true meaning, to understand its true value. And that is the journey that I have been for quite some times, and I'm sure that is the journey that many of you, many of us are going through, or have been going through, and will be going through. As long as I can remember, I have always been conscious about God. I've always wanted to know God, to know where we are coming from, to know the history of humanity. Let me give you a bit of background of my family. So my family, it's mostly traditional. They believe in ancestor, they believe in tradition. As myself, I've never really believed in what my family believed. I've always been, kind of a moralist person, being the good kid. And sometimes I will go to Catholic church, which was okay with my family, not a big deal, since the Catholic church it's most known in Cameroon, where I'm coming from. And I remember I even flirted with Jehovah Witnesses in my quest of knowing God. Sometimes when I would see Jehovah Witnesses walking around talking about God, I would invite them in our house because I wanted to know, I wanted to hear, I wanted to know about that God, and I was just so curious. And then when I had my degree, my high school degree, it was time for me to go to university. When my first year university, that's when I joined campus life, and that was my introduction to Pentecostal church, to everything that is Pentecostal. It's been in this Pentecostal environment that my desire of preaching the gospel came alive, if I can say so. And I left Cameroon for the first time to go to join a missionary organization as a missionary. I was extremely zealous with what I believe, what I believe should have been done, how faith, how God works. And we have been taught that people need to be saved, you know what I'm saying? And we needed to preach the gospel. So I engaged as a missionary, and I traveled to join an organization called Youth with a Mission. Traveling with Youth with a Mission and being immersed with a Mission as a non-denominational organization actually was the beginning of a shift in my mind. It opened my mind. Basically, we were immersed with different cultures, different nationality, but also different type of beliefs. You have Christians for all over the world coming together to serve one purpose, which is preaching the gospel. And that's the first time that I realized that faith or Christianity has so many variations. And I have noticed that there is a lot of our personal culture, of our own culture, that we bring in faith. A lot of religion will argue that, but it's a fact. It's a fact. We bring our culture, we bring us, our worldview in the faith, even though we tend to believe that it's universal. That's not true. Let's take an example, like the dressing code For instance, I am from a very warm and conservative culture in Cameroon, for instance, where we will interpret decency to be dressed like covered, like I'm dressed right now, covered with a panel, everything. But you will see other culture like the Western culture, for instance, dressing with a short or a short dresses, that's okay. Also with drinking alcohol. For some cultures, it's absolutely not possible to be a Christian or a believer and have alcohol. For other Christian, it's fine. It's just wine. By the way, Jesus also has drunk wine, so it's fine. So there's so many different topics like that, and it's all about our culture of how we see the world. And I remember this specific experience that I had with one of my friends. Was the time where I was still so zealous about my faith, about I was I was new in the movement of Pentecostal churches. I'm not going to say I was new in the faith, because I had faith way before. I had my experience with God, because I was still, before even joining the Pentecostal church, I was reading my Bible alone. I was thinking and reflecting, and I had experiences, and I have morals value. So when I joined this Pentecostal movement, and I remember this person that I knew in that movement who finally left after, but we met up sometime, and I was just like, I don't remember exactly what we were talking about. And then I brought up the topic of decency. I said, no. Oh, actually, I was criticizing the wife of a pastor who was wearing a short or who was not dressing appropriately, according to me, by that time. And then my friend told me, what is decency for you? I said, yes, decency should be cover yourself. And she looked at me, she said, do you know that you are not decent according to some culture? I said, what do you mean? She said, if you go to Muslim countries, for instance, just the fact that I can see your neck, I can see your eyes, I can see your mouth, you are not decent. What do you think decency is? And by that time I didn't realize, but today, and I look back, and it's so true. We will read the Bible when Paul talks about how we should dress in a decent way. But what is decency? And that's the part of our culture that we will bring into our faith. And unfortunately, we will not accept that we bring a lot of our culture. We bring a lot of our worldview into faith. And this is not only for Christianity, this is for all the religion. But I'm speaking here about Christianity because that's my background. That's where I'm coming from. So I think that being immersed with different Christian, different way of seeing the world, I started to open my mind and have questioned, because since I was coming from a very warm Cameroonian culture, Pentecostal church, we were very radical about a lot of things, so many things. You cannot listen to this kind of music, you cannot wear this kind of clothes, and I am sorry to say that, but a lot of judgment also, and a lot of, that's me, that's my personal experience that I'm sharing here, a lot of complex of superiority. I thought that I was better than this or that person. I thought that because I have Jesus, and I thought that I have truth, I have the whole truth, and being with so many different culture, and I realized that, oh, how can this person listen to worldly music and call themselves Christian and still pray? But it started to open my mind about how people dress, how people behave, how people eat, how people what people listen to, the behavior. And even though that I was in a very radical environment, I've always been a little bit different. I've always been a little bit open-minded, but my deconstruction journey really kick-started when the idea of the devil as a third person in the human history with God got deconstructed. So I used to listen to a lot of pastors and a lot of teachers, and I was always a student of the Bible, not only reading the Bible as the mere Christian, but going into deep, because according to my church back home in Cameroon, the Lord has called me as a minister. Some believe that I was called as a pastor, other believe that I was called as evangelist. So I took it really seriously, and I am someone who really loves knowledge, and I love to know, not superficially, but really know into deep. So I used to read my Bible, not only reading, I used to study my Bible in every single way, going to the etymology, the Greek, and everything. And this one experience happened. I used to believe in the devil. I used to believe we need to cast the devil in every single type of prayer that you can imagine. And I will never forget this. One day, that was just after the DTS. That was the program I was attending with the organization I was serving in Eswatini. We left the base. The 6 month has been completed, and I went to live with a friend of mine. And as I was there, I kept on reading my Bible and everything. And one day, I sat down outside. I was looking at the nature, and I'm someone who loves. Sometimes I get lost in my thought, and I sat down and I was listening to the bird and the insect, and I was looking far away, looking at the nature. And I started to meditate, and so many verses started to come up in my mind and come there. And I run inside the house, I grab my Bible to double check the verses. And at the moment, in my heart, what I believe is true came inside my heart. There is no devil as a third person. There is no devil who is fighting God and fighting humanity. And I was so scared about that thought coming into my mind, because this is something I've always believed my entire life, blaming the devil for so many things. So it was so scary not to believe there is no devil. And I was breathing heavily, and I needed to make sense of what came into my mind right now. And I took my Bible and I kept on reading, and I just realized that in the story of the humanity and God, there has only been God and human being. The devil is something else. The devil is not a third party who is fighting God. This is a topic we can talk about next time, but that was a really kick-starting to my deconstruction journey, because by that time I started to have a lot of questions. Then, if there is no devil, what is hell? What is the story of humanity? What is demon? Why life is difficult? And all these questions started. And really, as the definition said, deconstructing is not demolition, but breaking into parts to examine, to analyze, to better understand. That was a journey. That was the starting point of my journey. And I started to really breaking down all these things that I've believed all along, and I've started to question in my journey of finding answers to my questions. I started to meet and to find people who thought like me, like who are Christian, who thinks that there is no devil as a third part. Again, I am very clear about that, as a third party who fights God. So I believe in something else as the devil, but not as a third part who is fighting God and or who is fighting humanity. So I was questioning, and I had a lot of questions. I remember that specific day when that thought or that beliefs came, or that truth, which is true for me, came into my heart. I took the phone and I called a friend of mine because I was panicking. It's somebody who is an elder for me in the faith. And I was panicking. I was just like, wait, look, I have written this and I've studied this, and I believe that there is no devil, and then he said, yeah, of course, I believe the same. And I was just like, what? You didn't tell me that all along? But of course, he would have never told me, not to confuse me. And it's a kind of revelation. I'm going to use the word revelation here. It's a revelation that when it kicks inside your heart, it's not here, it's not head knowledge, it's in your heart. You cannot not believe it any longer. You know what I'm saying? It's a truth that hit very deep in your heart, you're so convinced that nothing on earth can convince you otherwise, because it's effortless. I didn't make any effort to believe it any longer. What I was trying to do instead was trying to make sense of the truth that has kick started in my heart, that and to make sense of all the other questions that I had. That's when I started to make some research, more research about the topic of hellfire, demons, and every single thing that you can imagine that are attached to the devil. And bless God for Facebook and the social media, because I was able to meet new people on Facebook, or see people who believes like me, or the Christian who has the same thought, and I realized that I was not alone. My real experience with God was when I started to travel alone. Let me put you in a context. So I was in Eswatini, and then I left Eswatini to go to South Africa to serve with another organization. So we were a group of people. We were supposed to travel all the year together to preach the gospel. And after 3 months, I felt in my heart, I felt that God was asking me to take a journey on my own. So I left the group and I started to travel around Africa by myself, going through organizations, churches, just being hosted in different countries. And I did that totally by faith. Zero money, zero plan B. I had a list of countries to go, and I knew I just have to keep going. And I was lucky enough by God's grace to complete the journey. But it was at that moment that I experienced God for the first time really deeply. I will never forget. And there is also, among the people I started to encounter or to meet on social media, the special human being Paul Young that has a tremendous effect on me. Is the author of The Shack. I don't know if you know the movie. One book that has a very great impact on me was his book Lies We Believe About God. And there's this memory that I have when I was in Namibia, and I was reading that book, and it was a really tough time already. It was a tough time emotionally, financially. It was a tough time in any type of way you can imagine. I was a single black female traveling across Africa myself without money, and I was already going through the process of deconstruction, and I started to feel a discomfort with some organization that were hosting me, because effectively I felt in my heart that there were so many different things that was not right, or I mean that I didn't believe or agree. And being there at that moment of difficulties, I felt alone, really alone. Not alone because I had no one, but I felt alone with myself. And it's at that moment that I had a very deep encounter of the person of God. I was experiencing God in a way that I've never. I was experiencing God out of the book, the Bible, the book that I've always known. I was experiencing God in myself, in others, and that was so real, so real. It is in that process of being alone with myself, alone with God, that I started to have so many changes happening inside me. For the first of my life, I started to see human being, you know what I'm saying? I started to love people, not loving because a book was asking me to love, but it's a feeling that I will never be able to explain, because I started to feel so much compassion, and I realized that so many things were changing in my heart. One thing is sure is that the deconstruction journey is not an easy one. You feel scared, you feel alone, you feel abandoned, and you feel even lost. I That's what I had felt for a really long time. When you start to deconstruct those beliefs that you have thought was true before, you can kind of feel alone, because all along, all the people who have surrounded you were the people who were believing the same thing as you. I remember one time I was talking to a friend, a very distant friend, who was going through the same process of deconstruction. And I remember telling him, I think I'm a coward. I'm a coward because I believe things, but I am not able to speak them out because I was afraid. I was afraid of offending people who have been around me all along this time. My church people, my organization people, my people from mission and everything. Especially being a person who is a very dynamic person. When I do something, I do it with my whole heart, and I do it at most. And so also being a people pleaser, even though I was already in that deconstruction journey and I started to believe some few things, but I was not free. I was the one myself putting me in a cage because I couldn't speak the truth that I believe, because I was scared. I was scared to find myself alone. I was scared of people not liking me any longer. I was scared of people abandon me. I felt alone a lot of time because I felt alone in myself. There's so many things I wanted to share, so many things that I wanted to experience with people who were thinking like me, who were going through the same process, and I didn't have a buddy, a deconstruction buddy to walk this journey with me. So yes, it's scary, it's lonely, and it's extremely painful. I do not recall the number of time where I cried, the number of time I prayed not to go this process, not to deconstruct, not to question all the things that I've believed. And when I mentioned to my friend that I was a coward, he told me, no, you're not a coward. You're brave, and it takes bravery to make one step to another. And I know there's a lot of people who are going through the same process. If you're scared, if you're afraid, your fear are legit. It takes a long time. Deconstruction is a journey. It takes a long time to reach certain points. So your fear is legit. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel alone. It's okay to feel abandoned. But one thing is sure is that you are not alone in this journey. You are absolutely not alone. There are so many of us who are going through the same journey. And hold on. You will meet your people. You will meet your crowd. You will meet your people, and you will meet that family. You will meet those people who think and believe like. And when I started to open to the idea of being myself or experience the truth that I believe, I had the grace to meet tremendous people, incredible people in my life who have been pillar to support and love me. And I've just started to be and to speak the truth that I am, that I believe. And I've seen a lot of people turning their back on me, a lot of people criticizing me, a lot of people attacking me. And it comes to a point I realized that when you go through a deconstruction journey, that's when you know your people. That's exactly when you know your people. Because people who turn their back on you are the people who have never loved you. They have never loved you. They have loved the idea of who you are, or they have loved the idea of what they want you to be. And the moment you're not what they want you to be, they're gonna turn their back on you, or they're gonna stone you. And I've seen people who have stayed, people who have loved me, people who don't understand the direction I'm taking, people who don't understand my belief, people who don't agree with me, but yet support me because they love me. I can take example of my mother, for instance. I remember when I was very serious in this missionary journey, and I told my mother that I'm gonna be a missionary. My mother disagreed with that. She didn't understand what I was about, and she even cried. My mother cried because she thought she has lost her daughter, but yet she came around again because she loves me. She loves me. She has never understood everything about my decision, but she has always been supportive of me because she loves me. She doesn't understand, but she loves me and she's there for me. And there's so many other people who have been there. They do not, and they tell me all the time, Jameen, I really don't think this is right, or I don't think the same way as you, but I'm here and I'm supporting you and I'm loving you. That are the people that you should keep around you, because deconstruction will make people go, but also the right people will come when you start to open yourself to the real you, the real truth. When you start to speak your truth. I am just now starting to experience, to explore things by myself. And I'm starting to realize that not everything that I've been told before is true, And I have started to look where my religion has told me not to look. And when I'm looking, what I see diversity, I see people, and I see love. That's exactly the reason why I started the story of us, because most of the time we tend to focus on our differences. We divide on topic that we do not agree, but we forget that we are more similar than what we think. We have something in common. We have love. We are all human beings, but we tend to divide on topics that we don't agree. And the story of us, the purpose of the story of us, is to see life through the eyes of somebody else, approaching the things that you have criticized or you have been scared of because you didn't know about. Now somebody who has experience of that thing, who lives that thing, can actually tell you their story, their way. The purpose of that podcast is especially to bring a common understanding, to unify on one single thing that matters, that is love, respect, and tolerance. That's why I started the story of us. Since I started this deconstruction journey, I have experienced freedom like never before. I started to be at peace within myself. The peace and the freedom to be who I was created to be. The freedom to think, differently. The freedom to experience different things. Because I had the impression that when I was immersed in my religious practice, I had the impression that I was not allowed to think out of the box. Thinking out of the box make me an outsider, make me something else, make me the bad sheep of the group. You may think that, she has lost her faith. She is becoming something else. No, I haven't lost my faith. I don't think we can lose one's faith. But I have lost my religion. Like Lauren Daigle said, I have lost my religion to find God. Finding God outside of religion. I haven't lost my faith. I have lost my religion to find God. To find God in humanity, to find God where my religion has told me that I will never find God. That's where I have found God. Beauty, diversity, love. You may ask yourself, what does she believe now? What does she believe today? Well, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that the story of humanity is a loving story with a loving God. That human race has been lost somewhere, but we have a loving God who is racing to find us, to redeem us, to save us. Not to save us from a third party devil who fights, but to save us from us, to save us from the lies that we have believed about ourselves and about God. That's the loving God that we have. One who has loved us, who have come to die for us. That's my belief. To convince us that we are perfect, that we have loved and that we are not alone. That's what I believe about this loving God. I believe that the entire human race is the body of Christ. Everyone is included. Everyone has been included. I believe that there is a part of the truth in every type of faith, in every type of religion. And I believe that every single one has, at some degree, an experience with God. I believe that everyone has an experience with God. We may not call it the same way. Some call it Buddha, some call it Allah, some call it Jesus, some call it nature, some call it Mother Nature, some call it the universe. I believe that there is only one God who is supreme, and no matter the names that we gave him, he will respond, and everyone has its relationship with him. I believe that in different type of faith there is a part of truth. There is a part of truth, but we cannot all conceive God. We cannot know God in his fullness. That's why we're human beings. That's why we made mistake. But I believe that everyone has an experience with God. I believe that hell is here. Hell is now. And Christ is saving us every single day from the hell that we have created from ourselves and for ourselves. That's the loving God and redeeming God. And I believe that the end story of human race, it's an happy ending because we have a loving God. There is a loving God, and that is the story of us. Thank you for watching. This was streaming for you. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel to stay updated when I will share the part 2 of my deconstruction journey. You can follow me all across social media with Call Me Jermaine. Cheers.